India's Home Minister Amit Shah has sought to dispel misunderstandings and uncertainties over the Government of India's decision to implement the Citizenship Amendment Act. In a candid interview, Shah addressed several key elements of the law and effectively quelled apprehensions about the implementation decision. Take a look.
Following the notification of the Citizenship Amendment Act or the CAA, India's Home Minister Amit Shah sought to dispel any apprehensions regarding the act. In a candid interview to an Indian news agency, Amit Shah asserted that the act will never be taken back.
CAA का कानून कभी वापस नहीं जाएगा और भारत की नागरिकता सुनिश्चित करना ये भारत का विषय है, भारत की संप्रभुता का निर्णय है. इसके साथ हम कोई कॉम्प्रोमाइज नहीं कर सकते.
Shah further said that the act seeks to offer refuge to persecuted religious minorities from neighboring countries. He categorically made it clear once again that CAA does not impact the citizenship status of the Indian Muslims.
अखंड भारत के जो लोग हिस्सा थे और जिन पर धार्मिक प्रताड़ना हुई है उसको शरण देना मैं मानता हूं हमारी नैतिक जिम्मेदारी है और हमारी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल रिस्पांसिबिलिटी. जब विभाजन हुआ तब पाकिस्तान में 23% हिंदू थे, हिंदू और सिख थे. आज 3.7% बच गए. कहां गए सारे? 1951 में हिंदुओं का प्रतिशत 22% था. मैं 51 की बात कर रहा हूं. बांग्लादेश की 51 के आंकड़े हमारे पास है. 2011 की जनगणना में वो 10% रह गए. कहां गए वो लोग? अफगानिस्तान 1992 के पूर्व, मैं 92 के आंकड़े मेरे पास लगभग 2 लाख सिख और हिंदू थे और आज करीब 500 बच गए.
He also sought to quell the concerns surrounding the violation of Article 14 of the Indian Constitution.
जहां तक असंवैधानिक होने का सवाल है, वो आर्टिकल अनुच्छेद 14 का हवाला देते हैं. वो भूल जाते हैं कि अनुच्छेद 14 में 2 अपवाद रखे हुए हैं. एक रीजनेबल क्लासिफिकेशन का अपवाद है और दूसरा कानून के उद्देश्यों के साथ लॉजिकल संबंध होना चाहिए. तो वो आर्टिकल 14 का वायोलेशन नहीं करता है.
Amit Shah gave assurance to the minorities that there is no need to fear as there is no provision in the CAA to take away anyone's citizenship.
इस देश के अल्पसंख्यक माइनॉरिटीज या तो किसी और व्यक्ति को डरने की जरूरत नहीं है क्योंकि सीएए में किसी की नागरिकता लेने का प्रावधान ही नहीं है. सीएए सिर्फ और सिर्फ 3 देश अफगानिस्तान, पाकिस्तान और बांग्लादेश से हिंदू, सिख, बौद्ध, क्रिश्चियन और पारसी जो जैन और पारसी शरणार्थी आए हैं इनको उनका अधिकार देने का कानून है, नागरिकता देने का कानून है जिससे इनके जीवन की वेदनाओं को हम कम कर पाए.
The act has attracted unjustifiable and unreasonable criticism from the international media.
फॉरेन मीडिया को पूछे उनके देश में ट्रिपल तलाक है क्या? उनके देश में मुस्लिम पर्सनल लॉ है क्या? उनके देश में एक भी स्टेट में 370 जैसा प्रोविजन है क्या? आप इस लॉ को आइसोलेशन में नहीं दे सकते. इस देश का एक इतिहास है. इस देश का विभाजन धर्म के आधार पर होना ही नहीं चाहिए था.
The act, which came into effect since Monday, will give citizenship to persecuted Hindus, Jains, Sikhs, Buddhists and Christians who were living as refugees in India. The government of India has launched an online portal where these people can apply for Indian citizenship. The Indian government will soon launch a mobile application that will make the process easier. Rishabh Sharma's report for DD India.
The high-level committee on One Nation, One Election set up by the Indian government has submitted its report to the Indian President. The committee was formed to draw a roadmap for holding simultaneous elections at the state and central level in India. Former Indian President Ramnath Kovind, along with Union Minister Amit Shah and Arjun Ram Meghwal and others have submitted the report on Thursday. The report, comprising of 18,626 pages, is the outcome of extensive consultations with stakeholders, experts and research of 191 days since its constitution on September last year. The committee has recommended a concrete model for one nation, one election. It is reported to have deliberated on a number of options for ensuring continuity of simultaneous elections. And DD India correspondent Vikas Sarthi joins us now for more on this story. Vikas, what are the details emerging of this concrete model being proposed for one nation, one election?
Right, Tanvi. So it's a lengthy report, as you just mentioned, that it is almost 18,000 pages report. So far as the parts of reports are concerned, we can largely divide it into three major categories. That first, what is the way ahead? What is the feasibility of holding elections of Lok Sabha, the lower house, the assemblies of the states, and the municipality and panchayat level elections? How we can hold these three elections together? The committee has suggested that it can be started from 2029. So in first phase, there will be simultaneous election of the lower house of the parliament, Lok Sabha, and state assemblies, and later on the local elections like panchayat elections and city level elections, municipal elections can be held together. Apart from it, it has also gone through the provisions of the constitution which will have to be amended to enable these one nation, one election policy. Apart from it, the committee has also studied the economic impact of holding elections together throughout the country. So these are the major areas where committee has given its recommendations. Majorly, it has recommended 44 points, out of which some are related to the constitution amendment. So far as the elections of lower house and the assemblies are concerned, it needs a simple constitution amendment. Though later on, when the municipality and panchayat level elections will also be held together, then the committee has suggested that there should be a constitution amendment which must be ratified by at least half of the states. So that will be the next step. Now the committee has given its report, and it has hundreds of meetings. In fact, the constitution of committee was also in a way that it can get the issues related to the financial implications, legal questions, what are the areas where constitution shall be amended. So the committee had eminent lawyer Harish Salve and an eminent constitutional expert Subhash Kashyap. They gave their inputs on those provisions which are related to the constitution. And as far as the economic impact is concerned, we had N.K. Singh, former Rajya Sabha MP, and he is also an economist, well-known economist. He has provided insight into what will be the financial implication of introducing this one nation, one election policy.
All right. Vikas, you have mentioned about the macroeconomic impact of ensuring simultaneous elections. Now, the committee has proposed the report to the president. What happens next? Can we see its implementation in the near future?
Well, certainly the President's Secretariat will study, President will study this report, and certain recommendations will be made on the basis of this report. In fact, Law Ministry will be the key, is the key ministry, in fact, is the key ministry in enabling this kind of discussions. And once the President accepts this report, then certainly the government will bring constitution amendment. There will be again a kind of, you can say, consultation with the states as well, since states will also be part of the second part of this report as far as the municipality elections and village panchayat elections are concerned. But the relevant part is that once President accepts this report in total, that whatever recommendations have been made, there no further changes or amendments are required, then it will be accepted as a whole, and all those areas which have been addressed by the committee, that constitution amendment providing financial assistance. Apart from it, certain amendments will have to be brought with respect to Election Commission of India. So the rules related to the making EC ID, electoral voter ID card, those rules will also be modified to enable a single identity for all elections like Lok Sabha, lower assembly elections, as well as the panchayat and municipality elections.
Okay, thank you very much, Vikas Sarthi, joining us from New Delhi. Sudha Murthy, Indian educator, author and former chairperson of the Infosys Foundation, took oath as the member of the Rajya Sabha, that is the upper house of Indian Parliament. Murthy was awarded the Padma Shri, the fourth highest civilian award in India for social work in the year 2006. Earlier on March 8th this year, Prime Minister Narendra Modi had said that her contributions to diverse fields, including that of social work, philanthropy and education, have been immense and inspiring. Modi said her presence in the Rajya Sabha is a powerful testament to the country's women power, Nari Shakti, exemplifying the strength and potential of women in shaping India's destiny. The Ministry of Information and Broadcasting has taken action in coordination with various intermediaries to block 18 OTT platforms publishing obscene, vulgar and in some instances pornographic content. 19 websites, 10 apps, 7 on Google Play Store, 3 on Apple App Store and 57 social media accounts associated with these platforms have been disabled for public access in India. Union Minister for Information and Broadcasting Anurag Singh Thakur has repeatedly emphasized the responsibility of the platforms to not propagate obscenity, vulgarity and abuse under the guise of creative expression. On 12th of March 2024, Thakur announced that 18 OTT platforms publishing obscene and vulgar content have been taken down. The recent decision was taken under the provisions of Information Technology Act 2000. One of the OTT apps amassed more than 1 crore downloads, while 2 others had over 50 lakh downloads on the Google Play Store. India has once again called for reforms in the UN Security Council on an urgent basis, stressing the role of UN Security Council the role that it plays in efforts towards resolution of conflicts and for sustaining peace. India slammed the United Nations for being frozen in time. India's permanent representative to the UN, Ruchira Kamboj, said that the United Nations need to evolve to avoid obsolescence and irrelevance. The Security Council as the institutional architecture primarily responsible for the maintenance of international peace and security.
One of the most important requirements is therefore to strengthen the capacity of this Council to address the issues in front of it, by making it representative of contemporary realities and by undertaking reform to make it more effective. For its part, for our part, India has indeed walked the talk, ensuring that the African Union became a full-fledged member of the G20 during our presidency last year. The United Nations Security Council simply needs to follow suit.
Kamboj added that the objective of peace building should be to break silos and to promote post-conflict peace building and recovery. India has consistently contributed positively and substantially to peace-building efforts, underpinned by our efforts to give voice to the countries of the Global South.
The peaceful settlement of disputes is key for the maintenance of international peace and security and the promotion of the rule of law. Dialogue and diplomacy should be the preferred path to resolve differences in an atmosphere free from fear and coercion.
You're watching DD India News Hour. Still to come on the show. A high-level Turkish delegation is holding talks in Baghdad today over security and energy issues. Uneasy calm in Haiti's capital 2 days after Haitian Prime Minister Ariel Henry resigned as the US and UN withdraw staff from Port-au-Prince.
अच्छी चीजों में समय लगता है, खूबसूरती निखारने में वक्त लगता है। Beautiful designs take time, लेकिन KYC अपडेट मिनटों में। KYC अपडेट अब आप घर बैठे बैठे भी कर सकते हैं। रजिस्टर्ड ईमेल, रजिस्टर्ड मोबाइल नंबर, ऑनलाइन बैंकिंग से। आधार OTP बेस्ड e-KYC से या फिर वीडियो KYC से। यहाँ तक कि अकाउंट भी घर बैठे बैठे खोला जा सकता है। RBI कहता है, इन्हीं से सुनिए,
जानकार बनिए,
सतर्क रहिए।
Why have the big five powers of the United Nations Security Council seen no change in 8 decades? Who is stalling reform of the world body, and for how long can we wait? Are we truly alone in the universe, or are there aliens who keep playing hide and seek with us? Watch Connecting the Dots to get the full picture every Friday at 8 p.m. IST on DD India.
Voice of a rising aspirational world. Stories of challenges, struggles and accomplishment. A world battling conflict, hunger and poverty. Embracing growth, development, science and technology. A voice of progress, a voice of unity. Watch Voice of the Global South with me, Akshay Dongre, only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I am Tanvi Taneja. Turkey and Iraq are due to hold talks in Baghdad on Thursday amid strained ties over security and energy issues. The talks also come as the government in Baghdad signals negotiations about the withdrawal of US-led coalition forces in Iraq. These talks are likely to continue past the US election in November. Washington and Baghdad began talks about pulling American troops out of Iraq after the US forces came under a series of attacks in the country from Shiite Muslim armed groups following Israel's military operation being launched in Gaza. Now, DD India's Ollie Barrett joins us from Baghdad for more on this story. Ollie, what are the talks between Turkey and Iraq likely to center on, and are you hopeful of any progress?
Well, certainly Baghdad is hopeful that there will be progress. The word from the Iraqi government today is that they hope to sign a security agreement with Ankara, which can focus on a number of issues, particularly around border security and tackling PKK Kurdish militants in the north of Iraq. That has been a very difficult issue between Iraq and Turkey for some time, because Turkey insists it will continue military operations against PKK Kurdish militants in the north of Iraq, but previous iterations of Turkish military operations have angered Baghdad over fears that it violates Iraqi sovereignty. So that is one of the items that Baghdad and Ankara hope that they can reach some kind of agreement on today, some kind of potential cooperation when it comes to dealing with the PKK militant group in the north of Iraq, but also discussions around energy. There is a key Turkey-Iraq pipeline for oil at the moment that is not running. Turkey would definitely like to see oil flow resumed in that particular pipeline, and wants to see progress with Baghdad here today to get the flow of oil from Iraq into Turkey and beyond into the international market moving again. We're also hearing talk of potential cooperation on things like renewable energy as well. So despite those strained ties over a number of issues, there is some optimism here in Baghdad that there can be progress in these talks with Turkey. And a lot of it is also to prepare the ground for a visit, a planned visit to Baghdad by the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, which is likely to take place, we think, next month.
Ollie, what more can you tell us on the winding down of a US-led military coalition in Iraq?
Well, we had that word from an Iraqi official this week, talking anonymously to the Reuters news agency, but saying that it was expected that those discussions about how exactly to wind down the coalition presence here in Iraq, would likely move past and beyond the American presidential election in November. Now, that reflects some competing desires here in Iraq when it comes to the US-led coalition, because there are some hardline Shiite factions, for example, who want American troops out immediately. There are others in government here in Baghdad who don't want it to happen so rapidly and potentially see some kind of ongoing American military presence even once the coalition troops for the most part pull out of the country. So it does look like American troops will be here for some time yet. There has been a period of calm for the last month or so when it comes to those attacks we were seeing from militant groups with links, the Americans claim, to Iran on American forces here in Iraq. There's been a period of calm over the last month or so, which perhaps gives some extra space to those discussions. There are still around 2,500 American troops here in Iraq. They came here as part of a coalition to deal with the Islamic State group in 2014, and they've been here ever since. As I say, there are some here in Iraq who want those American troops gone immediately, but I think growing signs that they will be here for some months to come and potentially beyond that as well.
Thank you, Oli, for those updates. Oli Barrett joining us from Baghdad, Iraq. Now, amid the ongoing Israel-Gaza conflict, Israeli lawmakers on Wednesday gave their final approval to an amended 2024 state budget to fund its operations against Gaza. The parliament members voted in favor of the spending package of $160 billion US. Additionally, Israel has announced that it will try to flood the Gaza Strip with humanitarian aid from a variety of entry points. More in our report.
Continuing its operation in Gaza, Israeli lawmakers on Wednesday gave their final approval to an amended 2024 state budget to fund Israel's operations against Gaza. Parliament members voted in favor of the spending package of $160 billion US. The plan also includes higher allocations for health, education, police and welfare.
Knesset has approved a good budget by a solid majority. Not a budget we liked from the beginning. We didn't want this war. But under the circumstances, it is a good budget with 4 goals. Support the war efforts until victory. With God's help, care for our reservists who are at the center of this budget.
However, Israel has announced that it will try to flood Gaza with humanitarian aid from a variety of entry points, but they will ensure that aid coming in by sea will benefit the Palestinian civilians in Gaza and not Hamas.
The humanitarian issue that will soon be on the agenda surrounded the expected arrivals of vessels is a central issue in order to allow supply to the civilians and not to Hamas. Any such act weakens Hamas, strengthens our grip and allows us to turn the ball on Hamas' head. We will continue to do so because it allows us operationally to complete our mission.
On the international side, US said that the Israeli government has a responsibility and obligation to ensure the job of humanitarian agencies working in Gaza.
The Israeli military, the Israeli government have a responsibility and an obligation to do everything possible to ensure that the humanitarians can do their jobs. And among other things, that means making sure that if there's a humanitarian facility that's clearly identified, it's not struck. It means making sure that if there's a supply mission, a convoy, trucks going to a particular place at a particular time, that the Israeli military does everything possible to ensure its secure passage.
Aid continues to arrive in Gaza. Germany Air Force started operation to supply aid to people in Gaza. A first Bundeswehr German Army aircraft took off from Everieux, France to Jordan. US too airdropped aid over Gaza. Meanwhile, Israel conducted airstrikes on Hamas unit and eliminated Hamas commander Mohammed Abu Hasna, who was involved in taking control of humanitarian aid and distributing it to Hamas operatives.
And DD India correspondent Alex Cadier now joins us from Jerusalem. Alex, there's already been a split in the Israeli war cabinet. How has the amended budget been received by the opposition?
Well, you've got Two different political stories there, and we'll start with that opposition reaction to the amended budget. Of course, a budget that had to be updated as a result of this war. And Yair Lapid, excuse me, who was the leader of the opposition in the Knesset, said Israel's most sectarian, disconnected from reality and irresponsible budget has been passed with cowards' votes. So that gives you a sense of the strength of feeling of opposition against that budget, which passed with 63 votes to 55. So it was narrowly passed. Certainly that was the strong reaction from the opposition because of not including cuts to domestic non-war related spending and therefore running up the Israeli government's deficit. That was part of the opposition's pushback when it comes to this budget. Now, if you look at that split in the war cabinet, that is being perceived more as positioning for any upcoming election, a positioning that for upcoming elections that could happen if they are called in the next few months or perhaps in the next year. And that split between Gideon Saar, who was a former justice minister, who was part of Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister's Likud party. He left Likud to make a coalition with Benny Gantz, a centrist coalition in the parliament. Well, Mr. Saar has announced he is now splitting from Benny Gantz and the agreement with Cabinet Minister Benny Gantz and creating his own centrist group in the Knesset. And this is certainly an example of Israeli politics. It is coalition building, is small parties working together very often in wartime and in peacetime. And certainly that national unity government of the war cabinet bringing multiple parties that were political opponents together seems to be fraying a little bit, or at least this is the first example of that fraying towards particularly a possible positioning for that upcoming election, should it be called.
Okay, we leave it here. Thank you very much, Alex Cadier, for those updates. You're watching DD India News Hour, still to come in the bulletin. After the break, we'll be speaking with our expert about the provisions of the Citizenship Amendment Act of India. India's Ministry of Information and Broadcasting blocks 18 OTT platforms showcasing obscene and vulgar content. And experts call on Japan to tighten regulations on electric scooter causing surge in traffic violations.
Why have the big five powers of the United Nations Security Council seen no change in 8 decades? Who is stalling reform of the world body, and for how long can we wait? Are we truly alone in the universe, or are there aliens who keep playing hide and seek with us? Watch Connecting the Dots to get the full picture every Friday at 8 p.m. IST on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I am Tanvi Taneja. A quick reminder of the headlines we are tracking at this hour. India's Home Minister Amit Shah dismisses claims of Citizenship Amendment Act being unconstitutional, says it offers citizenship to persecuted religious minorities from Pakistan, Bangladesh and Afghanistan and does not take away anyone's citizenship. Israeli parliament approves amended 2024 budget of $160 billion to fund operations in Gaza, adds it will try to flood the Gaza Strip with humanitarian aid from a variety of entry points. And gunmen behind the huge Kuriga kidnapping in Nigeria demand $620,000 for the release of school hostages within 20 days. And now to discuss the provisions of the Citizenship Amendment Act, we are now joined by Pinky Anand, Senior Advocate of Supreme Court of India. She also has served as Additional Solicitor General of India. Welcome, ma'am, to DD India News Hour. For the benefit of our international audience, why was it felt necessary to bring in the CEA and who does it help?
Very clearly, I mean, the whole intention is to help and protect minorities who are being persecuted in jurisdictions which are the neighboring countries. And these are established facts. So it's not any other purpose but this. And we deserve it for our own citizens to ensure that they're able to come back to the country, to see that the procedure that is adopted for them is simplified as much as possible, because they are ultimately in a stage of persecution and may not have availability of documents and other validations which are required. So it's a very simple process of protecting your citizens and your citizens who are under persecution.
Could you shed some more light, ma'am, about where in India the CAA will not apply and why?
The only possibility of it not applying would be in the Assam Accord. And the reason it is because the Assam Accord itself has dates fixed to that, for which it might be a difficulty, and it has its own significance. But failing that, rest of it should apply across board. Of course, some states had shown some reservations, but indeed the act is going to prevail over the whole country as a central act. So hopefully there would be no resistance to that in any manner whatsoever, save and except, of course, challenge to constitutionality, if any.
Is there any section of people against whom the CAA might possibly be discriminatory in any way at all, or is it a completely fair or helpful legislation for religiously persecuted minorities?
Whenever you have affirmative action, and this is by way of an affirmative action by the minorities who are under persecution in those countries. So there is no question of any discrimination. If you're discriminating against somebody, that's one point. But if you're doing affirmative action in favor of a particular category of people with which there is a nexus of the country, that is the Republic of India, and we are looking at Indians, and we are looking at people from certain communities who are persecuted in those countries, there is no question of discrimination.
So can we now expect a flood of applications from such religiously persecuted minorities for Indian citizenship?
We should, and we hope to. We hope to have them back in the surface and on the as they say, the earth of India and the Republic of India.
Pinky ji, can you tell us something more about the procedure for applying the citizenship? Is it simple enough for the applicants to easily follow?
In fact, it's been simplified. So earlier there was a requirement, for example, of a valid visa or a valid travel document, and today the procedure has been so simplified that even if you don't have a valid document, it's invalidated because of lapse of time or otherwise, it would still be in proof of the fact that you are coming from these countries and you are the minority that is said to be persecuted. You are actually having the simplification on this basis for the sake of facility to the Indian citizens who are coming back to the country.
Finally, ma'am, would you agree that not only is the CAA constitutionally sound, but also that any criticism of it is completely unfounded and unjustified?
Absolutely, absolutely unfounded. See, we have come to a stage of time that we start we as in some people in some cross-sections start raising questions at valid legislations, at affirmative actions. As I said, if this action had been done as an affirmative action, which it has, then where is a question of criticizing it? You are giving a facility to a cross-section of people who belong to this country and who are facing difficulties on account of being in countries which are espousing other religions and are majorities in that. This is what we are seeking to do. Where is a question of any criticism on this count? But, I mean, people will continue to always raise questions, I suppose.
Okay. Thank you very much, Pinky Anandji, for joining us in DD India News Hour and for the analysis of the provisions of CAA. Now, moving on, Delhi Airport has achieved a significant milestone by transshipping over 80 lakh kilograms of Bangladeshi cargo to international destinations in the last 1 year. This achievement not only cements Delhi Airport's status as the foremost cargo hub in Southeast Asia, but also catalyzes a favorable domino effect throughout the aviation industry. The transshipment facility for Bangladeshi cargo first began on February 26, 2023, paving the way for a faster and cost-effective route of shipping export cargo internationally. Since then, Delhi Airport has helped transship over 80 lakh kgs of ready-made garments to European nations, including that of Spain, the Netherlands and France. The European Union is the second largest export destination for Bangladeshi apparel, followed by the UK and Canada. Let's now take a look at other stories making news in India. Chief Minister of North Indian state of Uttar Pradesh, Yogi Adityanath, inaugurated multiple development projects on Thursday. A total of 4,977 development projects were launched, along with 2 private industrial development projects. India's Enforcement Directorate conducted multiple raids at 13 locations across the country. The raids were conducted in Uttar Pradesh, Mumbai and national capital Delhi in connection with an ongoing sand mining case related to a former cabinet minister, Gayatri Prajapati. The searches covered the residences of the minister, his wife and sons. India's Union Minister of Information Technology, Ashwini Vaishnav, inaugurated the semiconductor major Qualcomm's new design center at Ramanujan IT City in South Indian city of Chennai on Thursday. Qualcomm's president Cristiano Amon was also present for the inauguration. The Chennai center will specialize in wireless connectivity solutions and will contribute to Qualcomm's global R&D efforts in 5G technology. Fresh snowfall blanketed the hills of Kulu district in India's northern state of Himachal Pradesh. The high peaks donned their wintry veil as temperatures plummeted in the region, witnessing light to heavy snowfall. On to Africa now. Gunmen who kidnapped 286 students and staff from a school in northern Nigeria last week have demanded a total of 1 billion naira, equivalent to 620,000 US dollars, for their release. This is what a spokesman for the families of the hostages and a local councillor said. DD India's Jack Mangwood reports from Abuja.
According to a spokesman for the families of the hostages and a local councillor, the kidnappers contacted the families through his phone to demand the ransom on Tuesday. He said the kidnappers have given an ultimatum for the ransom to be paid within 20 days, starting from the day the call was made. The kidnappers threatened to kill all the students if their demand was not met. But Nigeria's president has said no dime will be paid to rescue the hostages or other kidnapped victims. Instead, he directed security agencies to ensure the release of all kidnapped victims without any payments to the kidnappers. Last week, the governor of Kaduna State assured parents that the government was working to secure the safe release of their children. Nigeria has seen a rise in cases of kidnappings in recent weeks, which security experts have attributed to the current economic crisis. At least 50 women and children were kidnapped barely 24 hours before the Kuriga incident. Gunmen known as bandits have been attacking villages, killing and kidnapping people for ransom. The country has a law against payment of ransom to kidnappers, but according to the intelligence agency SBM, nearly $400,000 was paid by families between July 2022 and June 2023 to rescue their loved ones. Experts warn that unless the government addresses current economic challenges, things could get worse. Ajak Mangut in Abuja, reporting for DD India.
On to the Caribbean now. Haiti's capital was calm on Wednesday, 2 days after Haitian Prime Minister Ariel Henry resigned. The US and the UN, meanwhile, began to withdraw staff in a sign that they fear peace might not hold. The US Southern Command has sent a team of Marines, to ensure the protection of the US Embassy in the Caribbean country. DD India's Latin American correspondent Mary Trini Mina has more.
The United States has announced the deployment of a fleet of Marines to Haiti after the resignation of the country's prime minister. According to U.S. officials, an anti-terrorism security team has been sent to the capital, Port-au-Prince. The U.S. Embassy remains open, although with limited operations. The capital is currently controlled by heavily armed civilians. The U.S. Department of State has warned U.S. citizens not to travel to Haiti. On Monday, Haiti's Prime Minister Ariel Henry agreed to step down from his duties while a transitional council is going to be implemented. The council will exercise presidential power, and its mission is to appoint a new Prime Minister and a new electoral council. The goal is to hold elections later in 2024 to improve the political and social crisis in the Caribbean nation. However, experts have warned that the success of Haiti's transition will depend on whether the gangs currently in control can be part of the negotiations. Meanwhile, the Kenyan government, which had agreed with Haiti to send police forces, has decided to pause the deployment of security forces to the island. African officials said they are going to evaluate the agreement once a new Haitian government is in place. Mari Trinimene in Caracas, reporting for DD India.
Back to Asia, the border guard Bangladesh personnel recovered the body of a man with 40 gold bars weighing 5.2 kilograms from the Ichamoti River in Jessore district of Bangladesh on Wednesday. The body of Mushiar Rahman was spotted by locals floating in the river and they informed the BGB and police. The body was handed over to local police station. According to locals and police, Mushiar drowned in the river while he was trying to smuggle gold to India through the Pipli frontier on Sunday afternoon. In some business news now, Asian stocks hovered close to 7-month highs on Thursday, trading mostly flat as investors awaited developments on global interest rate adjustments. So Japan's Nikkei ended a 3-day losing streak but remained on course for its sharpest weekly decline in 3 months. S&P 500 futures increased by 0.15% and Nasdaq futures rose by 0.3%. In India, the BSE Sensex and Nifty 50 opened lower on Thursday, though. The Sensex dropped by 264 points to 72,497 in early trading, while the Nifty 50 fell by 80 points to 21,917. A TikTok bill that could potentially lead to it being banned in the United States is moving forward in the Senate. The wording of the bill approved by the House calls for TikTok to divest from its Chinese-owned parent company ByteDance within 6 months. In June 2020, India became the first country to ban TikTok. Meanwhile, China responded to the news with the Foreign Ministry spokesman calling the bill an act of bullying in a press briefing.
In recent years, although the United States has never found any evidence on TikTok's so-called threat to its national security, it has never ceased to suppress TikTok. This kind of conduct of resorting to bullying, when failing to win in fair competition, disrupts the normal business operations, frustrates international investors' confidence in the investment environment, and undermines the normal international economic and trade order.
Experts are calling for Japan to tighten regulations as a boom in electric scooter use is resulting in a surge in traffic violations. Japanese police say the number of monthly offences jumped 5-fold in the second half of 2023 after rules about their use were eased in July. DD India's Chris Gilbert reports from Tokyo.
Zooming into peak season, e-scooter manufacturer Swallow is enjoying its day in the sun. Sales are up and business is booming. 5 years ago it was selling 10 units a month. Now it's 100 units. And this year they're looking to double that.
We want to make e-scooters of my community more familiar to people. So we want to sell scooters in the big electronic stores, some bicycle shops, some car shops, so that people can actually try scooters before they're buying and they know what they are. So that's our goal.
He says the boom is largely due to the government relaxing e-scooter rules last July. Horns, helmets and indicators all went from compulsory to optional. And he says e-scooters are help meeting a niche demand in megacities like Tokyo.
Most residents here rely on Tokyo's massive public transportation system for their daily commute, but in such a big city, just getting to the station can sometimes be a struggle, and streets like this one are known as dead zones. They're far from any train station, so jumping on an e-scooter to get there can potentially cut half an hour off people's daily commute.
The National Police say they've seen a surge in usage and in traffic accidents. There were more than 1,800 incidents involving e-scooters in December alone, more than 5 times the July number. Most were for breaking traffic rules, running red lights, riding in the wrong lane, or using while inebriated. In the same period, there were 85 incidents resulting in injury or death, 71 of them in Tokyo. Experts say the rules should be tightened to make driver's licenses mandatory.
I think it was very dangerous to allow people to ride freely without some sort of education. It's dangerous to allow motorised vehicles to be ridden so casually by ill-informed drivers that lack basic knowledge.
Hirokuni-san agrees that education and safety measures are important.
I don't say e-scooters are safer than bicycle. It's same. You have to follow the traffic law. That's a very important thing.
He says micromobility may become a part of daily life in Tokyo, and he hopes people will ride responsibly so the government doesn't have to backtrack the rule changes and bring e-scooters' rising popularity crashing back to earth. Chris Gilbert in Tokyo, reporting for DD India.
And next we take a look at other stories making news around the world. US President Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, rejected a request to testify to an open hearing before a US House of Representatives committee. Hunter Biden is facing 2 criminal trials, both tentatively scheduled for June. South Korean and US troops concluded their annual joint military exercise on Thursday with live firing drills, including a demonstration of unmanned surveillance drones. About 300 South Korean soldiers and about 30 US soldiers participated in the drill. The 11-day run was aimed at deterring North Korea's threats. SpaceX Starship is set for its 3rd uncrewed test launch on Thursday. SpaceX hopes the craft will carry it farther than the first 2 flights launched last year. Mounted atop the Super Heavy rocket booster, the spacecraft will lift off from SpaceX Starbase site on the Gulf of Mexico near Boca Chica in Texas. And wildfires raged over Chile's central port city of Valparaiso on Wednesday. Firefighters are working to put out the blaze. This comes a month after deadly wildfires devastated central Chile in early February. At least 133 people died in the February fires. You're watching DD India News Hour, still to come on the show. Borussia Dortmund and Atletico Madrid advanced to the Champions League quarter-final. Indian contingent including PV Sindhu, Satvik Chirag in action at the All England Badminton Championship.
Why have the big 5 powers of the United Nations Security Council seen no change in 8 decades? Who is stalling reform of the world body, and for how long can we wait? Are we truly alone in the universe, or are there aliens who keep playing hide and seek with us? Watch Connecting the Dots to get the full picture every Friday at 8 p.m. IST on DD India.
Voice of a rising aspirational world. Stories of challenges, struggles and accomplishment. A world battling conflict, hunger and poverty. Embracing growth, development, science and technology. A voice of progress, a voice of unity. Watch Voice of the Global South with me, Akshay Dongre, only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I am Tanvi Taneja. And time now to bring you up to speed with all the sporting action with my colleague Deepika Mehto. Deepika, what do you have for us today?
Thanks and good afternoon, Tanvi. A lot including cricket and soccer. We've got the final winners of the Ranji Trophy. So let's get started with cricket update first. Well, Mumbai backed the Ranji Trophy for the record 42nd time when it defeated Vidarbh by 169 runs on the 5th day of the finals in Mumbai on Thursday. Chasing 538 runs to win, Vidarbh needed 290 runs on the last day of the match. Akshay Vatkar and Harsh Dubey added 130 runs for the 6th wicket in the morning session without losing a wicket. But their fall in successive overs drew curtains over its chances of a third first-class crown for Vidarbh. Tanush Kotiyan started with the ball, picking 4 wickets, including the centurion Vatkar. Now Dhaval Kulkarni, who is set to retire after the end of the season, claimed the final wicket and sealed the victory for Mumbai. For Vidarbh, the first innings deficit of 115 was way too much on a surface that wasn't bad for batting. Vatkar and Dubey tried to rewrite history, but eventually the side fell short of the target. Now, in interesting encounters at the Champions League, Borussia Dortmund and Atletico Madrid both made it to the quarter-final round, and now all eyes are on the upcoming Champions League draw that will take place on Friday this week. Our next report tells you more about the latest quarter-finalists.
In an interesting race to the quarter-finals round of Champions League, Jadon Sancho's sniper-like goals helped Team Borussia Dortmund to advance into the Champions League quarter-final with a 2-0 victory against PSV Eindhoven. Dortmund had an effort by Niklas Füllkrug, ruled offside, but Rios did better in a stoppage time after Eindhoven had come close through Luke de Jong. Edin Terzic expressed his happiness on the victory.
Very pleased with progressing. Of course, it wasn't an easy way through the group stage, especially when you look at how we started the Champions League. We could not win the first 2 games, and of course, we were delighted to still be in the top 8. It is a special evening for us, and we are very happy about that. Thank you very much.
In another clash, Atletico ousted Inter Milan on penalties to reach Champions League quarter-final stage. Jan Oblak saved 2 penalties and Lautaro Martinez blasted his efforts over the bar to send Atletico through 3-2 in the shootout after the match finished 2-1 to the Spanish side after extra time.
We didn't stand a chance against Inter Milan, and I said it is the best thing that can happen to us, because when they see us already out, it is the best moment, because this is when the team reacts. It can be casualty or not, but once again we made it, coming from no one believing, or many people, because all those who came to the stadium today, they believed the whole world time, and it happened. It happened because they gave it their all, performed a great match, and because we have great players.
Both the teams had chances to win in extra time, but in the end it was Diego Simon's side who held their nerves, and last season's beaten finalists exited the competition. All eyes will now be on the draw for the Champions League quarter-finals that will take place on Friday, the 15th of March at the House of European Football in Nyon, Switzerland. Sports Desk, DD India.
On to badminton, 2-time Olympic medalist PV Sindhu is all set to face top seed South Korean On Si-young in round of 16 of the women's singles category at the ongoing All England Badminton Championship. Earlier in the match, her German opponent Won Lee retired after the completion of the first game, giving the former world champion an easy victory. On the other hand, in men's doubles encounter, the top seed pair of Satvik Sairaj Ranki Reddy and Chirag Shetty will take on N. Fikri and Bagas Mulana, another Indonesian pair, in the second round. The Indian duo secured a convincing victory over the highly experienced Mohammad Ehsan and Hendra Setiawan. In tennis, American Emma Navarro stunned world number 2 Arina Sabalenka by 6-3, 3-6 and 6-2 to record the biggest victory of her career and reach the quarterfinals of the ongoing Indian Wells for the first time. Navarro absorbed Sabalenka's powerful serve and converted 4 of her 5 breakpoint opportunities to defeat the reigning 2-time Australian Open champion in windy conditions. On the other hand, American third seed Coco Gauff had no issues progressing to the last 8, dispatching Belgian Lise Martinez by 6-0 and 6-2. The dynamic American played her best tennis of the tournament so far, serving well and stepping into the court to overwhelm the Belgian 24th seed. Martinez was able to back up her victory over Naomi Osaka in the previous round, hitting just 4 winners to 21 unforced errors in a match that lasted just over an hour. So that was a quick wrap from the world of sports. Back to Tanvi.
Thank you so much, Deepika. Now, March 14 marks the birth anniversary of the great physicist and Nobel laureate Albert Einstein. Einstein was born in 1876 and by 1905 he had worked out some of the most path-breaking research in the field of physics that changed the way the world viewed the subject. His equations have helped us to understand the universe, space, time, gravity, and to accurately count atoms. They literally illuminate our lives and are applied to fields across science. A report.
The mind of a genius and its impact on almost everything we do. We take a lot for granted because the applications of science have advanced to such an extent that we are experiencing a different quality of life. But one man was largely responsible for that, Albert Einstein. In 1905, a miracle year, Einstein published groundbreaking papers on the photoelectric effect, the Brownian motion, and the special theory of relativity. 10 years later, he added the general theory of relativity that incorporated gravitation.
GPS system relies heavily on Einstein's general relativity. The photoelectric effect is something which paved way for detecting light. So in order to detect light, earlier we started with photomultiplier tubes, and that relied exactly on photoelectric effect. And then it developed into CCDs and the cameras which we have today. Counting the atoms and the colloids, this is something which started the field of chemistry. We were able to count the number of atoms. Now we know how the gases behave. And this Brownian motion is not just applicable in physics or chemistry, it's also applicable in finance.
The photoelectric effect is the emission of electrons from a material caused by light. Special relativity shows us that the speed of light is independent of the motion of the observer.
Right? And light has no mass.
Black holes are regions of space where gravitational pull is so strong that not even light can escape.
The photon which would have started from the sun starts 8 minutes earlier, comes to the earth after 8 minutes, and exactly 8 minutes have passed. For the photon, there is no time. When it started, when it was detected, there is no time for the photon. So it was absorbed and emitted at the same time. So that connected space and time together.
100 years after the general theory of relativity, science was able to confirm gravitational waves. At a macro level, Einstein's general relativity tells us about the curvature of space-time in 4 dimensions that cause gravity.
Einstein predicted the existence of gravitational waves in 1915, and subsequently, because these are what are ripples of space and time, if you have 2 black holes which are going around each other, they would create a ripple in space and time. Subsequently, when the technology is developed over time, after 100 years exactly in 2015, we detected gravitational waves.
His collaborations with other scientists was through correspondence. Satyendranath Bose's research around photons brought to light subatomic particles, later called bosons. Einstein engaged with India's political class on subjects like satyagraha, colonialism and industrialization. He even called the fellow Nobel laureate Rabindranath Tagore rabbi. Bureau Report, DD India.
And the alms-giving Buddhist festival was observed in several cities of Nepal on Thursday. The centuries-old tradition is held once every 12 years. Devotees give away a variety of gifts to the deities, monks and the Buddhist communities as part of the 2-day-long celebration. That's it in this edition of DD India News Hour. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly Twitter and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja from my entire team in New Delhi. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.